A brief history of acid house.
Part 1.
In this story, we trace the origins of acid house.
The story of the synthesizer that changed the world.
A sound born from curiosity.
For some reason, he thought that sounded good.
Accident.
They lost the batteries in the Roland 303 bass line.
And rebellion.
Because you might get arrested.
It begins not in a nightclub in Chicago, but in Japan. And it's a journey that takes us from a small electronic machine to a cultural revolution. Japan, 1981. An engineer named Ikitaro Kakahashi had already changed the course of music once. In 1972, he founded the Roland Corporation, a company driven by a simple belief: design the future. One of Roland's engineers, Tadao Kikumoto, created a compact silver bass synthesizer called the TB-303. It was intended as a practice tool for guitarists. Unfortunately, it failed. Fewer than 10,000 units were sold. But inside this small machine was a sound that nobody yet understood. Chicago, 1985. Thousands of miles away in Chicago, a new scene was taking shape. At a club called The Warehouse, DJ Frankie Knuckles was extending disco records into something deeper, something more hypnotic, something people began to call house music. When Knuckles moved on, DJ Ron Hardy took over at the music box. Hardy played louder, faster, harder. Then came along three young producers, calling themselves Future. They bought a second-hand TB-303 and did something no one had quite ever done before. They twisted the knobs while the sequence was running. What came out of it was about to change the world. One of the three, DJ Pierre, pushed the machine beyond its limits.
I always did that from a child. So I always just kind of like, every kid liked to twist knobs. So we know that. They like to touch knobs and stuff. So I was just that kind of kid that was really like that in terms of my thought process and messing around with stuff. I would not actually do that just to kind of get warmed up, just to kind of get my mind working and mess with the TV knob. I used to turn from one station and put it between channel 7 and channel 6. And like, man, I wonder if something could come up right here. If I can get a picture, and I would try on all the different knobs. And sometimes I'll find that one thing, hey, it's a channel in between here.
The sound that emerged was elastic, metallic, alive.
I didn't know how Spanky and Herb felt about it. And really more Spanky, because Spanky is the person that wanted to do music. I was just a DJ, and I wasn't thinking I want to make music. And he was always like, oh, Pierre, come on, we could do this thing. I want to create a group. I want to do this. So he got me into making music. And he also introduced me to Ron Hardy. And so, which is the whole key factor in why acid became a thing in the first place. But when I was twisting the knobs, Spanky was like, oh, Pierre, keep doing that. And he liked it. So when I was twisting, it was just me. But, you know, if no one else liked it, maybe I would have just been like, it's just something I like, you know. But when he encouraged me, like, and then it just opened me up to be like, okay, you know, he likes this. And so they vibing on this. And he started vibing. And then that we were like, hey, but who's going to play this? Because I don't know if people understand, but at that point in time in house music in Chicago, you have to have your own thing, your own style. And we kept buying all these keyboards, and we didn't like none of the bass lines, the way the bass sound, because we couldn't afford no real keyboards at the time. Those things was a lot of money. So we were getting like Casios and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, God, man, I hate this don't do nothing. I'm trying to make the bass sound good, and the parameters don't really adjust enough. It's like, it's not really doing nothing. It's like giving me that sound. So I heard my friend named Jasper. He had a 303, and he was playing this track. I said, oh, that bass line sound nice, sound thick. I said, what keyboard is that? He said, oh, it's this 303. And it was like a bass line like No Way Back or something like that. I don't even know if No Way Back was out at the time, but it was like a bass line pattern playing. And I was like, oh, that sounds thick. I said, oh, that's nice. I want to get one of those. I had no idea what the knobs did, because it wasn't like when I was over there that I touched the machine. Yeah. I just was listening. And he pointed out, and I told Spank, I said, Spank, we need to get one of those. The bass sound good on that machine. And then so he got it, and he called me over and said, I got the 303, but it ain't sounding right, it's whatever. And so we got over there. That's when I started. He's like, Pierre, see what's up with that, because I'm like the technical guy. So I just come in and just either fix whatever the problem is or sort it out somehow. So that's how the interest in the 303 even happened. But once he made the track and knew that it sounded different, that we had a sound. We had a sound, but we didn't know if it was a sound that people would like, because it was so different.
Nobody had heard anything like it. Future took a cassette of their track to Ron Hardy.
The only person that he think will play it is Ron Hardy. And you know why he said that? We were going to the music box. Larry Heard, Fingers, like, all these tracks. And some of the tracks were like, they had all these sounds like that. So we knew that, well, he playing this new house music and these different sounds. So yeah, we're going to take it to him. And when he heard it, I was thinking, oh, wow, I don't know if he liked it, you know? Like, he played it again for a short length of time. Then people was like, they didn't like it, you know, and then he came out of it. And then we was thinking, oh, man, they didn't like it. And then so the third time he played it, but he just played like not the bass. He had the bass out of it. Yeah, I hear it. He playing it, but he didn't come in with it yet. And then he took it out. Then he just played it again. And this time he just like slammed it all the way in with the bass and everything. And just people went crazy. It's like, what the heck is this track? And they was like, what in the world is this track? And it just went nuts.
And on that fourth spin, something shifted. The dance floor erupted. No one even knew who it was by. All over Chicago, copies of copies of copies were made. They called it Ron Hardy's Acid Tracks. Eventually, the band signed to Trax Records and called it Acid Tracks. This became the blueprint for a brand new genre. Acid House had arrived. The sound soon crossed the Atlantic. In Manchester, the Hacienda, co-founded by Tony Wilson and the members of New Order, the place became a focal point for the new emerging scene.
Hillegonda C. Ragtveld, Professor of Sonic Culture.
The Hacienda, this thing that happened almost overnight in 88, you know, I mean, Acid House sort of arrived in 87, but it really sort of got hold of the British psyche around May 1988. And I do remember first hearing a mixtape with Acid House, and I thought it was the most god-awful sound I'd ever heard in my life.
DJs including John Da Silva, Mike Pickering and Graham Park brought the Chicago sound to packed dance floors.
Dr. Stuart Borthwick, cultural historian.
House music being played at the Hacienda by Mike Pickering and others really quite early. You might say that Hacienda was playing house music before Acid House.
In Ibiza, DJ Alfredo was blending eclectic styles into euphoric all-night sets. Among those inspired were Paul Oakenfold, Danny Rampling, and Nicky Holloway. They returned to London determined to create that atmosphere. Clubs such as Shoom, Spectrum, Future help ignite what would become the second summer of love. In other cities around the UK, including Liverpool, Glasgow, Birmingham, amongst many others, the scene was consuming young people who had the fortune of experiencing its magic. By 1988, acid house was no longer underground. It was a youth movement, defined by new fashion, new freedoms, and a simple mantra: peace, unity, love. While the movement grew into something more powerful than you can possibly imagine, fear began to grow inside those who felt threatened by large numbers of young people gathering. As the 1980s gave way to the 90s, acid house and rave culture exploded into countless forms, from glamorous superclubs to sprawling free parties in open fields. While criminal elements became involved in parts of the scene, for most people, rave culture remained rooted in music, community, escapism, and the wonder of the new music entering our shores. Yet Conservative Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and the wider establishment increasingly sought to demonise ravers. Tabloid newspapers sensationalised the movement, police forces intensified crackdowns on illegal parties, and by 1994, the infamous Criminal Justice Act attempted to target gatherings centred around music defined as featuring a succession of repetitive beats.
And that's what started the whole craze with the government. And you gotta think about it. People were telling me at the time, Pierre, you can't go to England. You can't go to England. Don't say what you did. You do not say you did acid trip. Me telling me stuff. And I was like, really? He said, no, cuz you might get arrested.
Legislation followed. Yet the more it was suppressed, the further it spread. Acid house slipped into the mainstream, influencing pop, fashion, electronic music for decades. Before we finish, I want you to listen to these views. Acid house is an oddity, because for something that came from an accident, misusing a machine, a circuit misfiring, batteries desperately trying to cling on to power, it's had more life than most genres could dream of. It's moved forward, crossed scenes, crossed generations, and yet somehow it still sounds exactly as it always did. Is acid house evolving, or did it arrive fully formed the moment the 303 started to squelch? What we're about to hear gets right to the heart of it, from where the sound might go next to what makes it so unmistakable, so alien, yet so human at the same time.
I really believe acid is still finding its true place. I think that people are going to take it way more into the mainstream. Like, I mean, it's already mainstream, like EDM mainstream and stuff like that. But I think it's going to get into like radio. Like someone is going to make some radio joint with it that is going to be like really incredible.
As DJ Pierre explains also to me, you know, basically they lost the batteries in this 303 bass line, this Roland 303 bass line. And so it just spat out its own sort of whatever. And so this is really its own circuit board, sort of making its own connections. And of course, this circuit board is nothing like a human being, you know. It was doing its own thing. And so it is alien in that sense, right?
One thing that absolutely fascinates me about acid house is it not changing. If I ask you to describe to me acid house as it is in 2026, the description you give me is going to be very, very similar to the description you would have given me in 1988. Now, there might, I say house less so, but acid house, I'm fascinated.
So you got to get back to where you closing your eyes. Check this out. I could have one idea in my mind, but a sample loop, if I hear it that I like, it might totally take me a different direction than what I was having in my mind. And I might like it, but I didn't do what I had in my mind. That never was like that with drum machines and stuff. I always followed that path of what was in my mind. And I think producers today, they're starting out that way and they're never really finding their true sound. And I think that's how I ended up finding my true sound like that. Now today, do you really find your true sound from your heart, or are you finding your sound based on other sounds that you're sampling? Which I'm not saying that's not a route to go, but if everybody's doing that same thing, then everybody's starting at the same foundation of samples of sounds. But when you're starting from your own soul and heart, your life experiences come into play.
Acid house as a sound, as a music, is deranged, right? It's absolutely deranged, literally. And I think that was the scary part of it, in a way, to the government and to institutions. And where the moral panic, in a way, I think, had something to do with that sound.
The TB-303, once dismissed as a commercial failure, became one of the most iconic instruments in modern music. Acid house was, in many ways, punk rewritten in circuitry. It proved that someone with an imagination and a machine could start a movement. The story began with the Silver Box in 1981, and its echo is still resonating on dance floors today.
Coming in part 2.
There's a lot to experiment, and I think all these things really kept the sound alive. And obviously when you keep the acid sound alive, you keep acid house alive.
I don't think everyone gets it, but some people, it just really just pierces their head.
I think there's two different definitions that need to be put into play there. The acid sound and acid house, which are two separate things.
Sometimes like, that's crazy that I did that. Like, it's like, that's not me. Like, if that was someone else, I'd be like, wow, that must be amazing. Imagine how he feel. He did this and did that. But since it's me, I'm like, wow, that's bugged out.